Alright, horror hounds, and welcome to another episode of This Just In. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 3 of Chucky. So, this episode is a little perplexing for me compared to some of the other ones. I'll go through the ins, the mixed, and then some things I'm out on, or maybe just some explanations of my thoughts when it comes to this episode. So, the first thing I'm going to give it into is the Clockwork Orange reference in this movie, or episode, referencing that movie. So, we get a whole scene where the Chucky doll that they caught in the last one is tied up to a chair, and they're going to mentally break Chucky. So, they put him strapped to a chair, have his eyes wired wide open, just stuck watching the phone. And they got references of he's watching The Thing, and he's watching some other horror movies, going for some extreme kill and gore, and Chucky loves it. But eventually it gets to the point where Chucky's watching so much stuff, he throws up. Didn't know the doll could throw up. But then they all kind of sleep, and the new star of the show, not the main star, but our fourth cast member this year, since Junior's gone now, she ends up switching it to some happy stuff like My Little Pony and things like that. And then they fall asleep, and when they wake up in the morning, Chucky's a whole new person. So eventually it did break Chucky's spirits, and he was no longer the killer doll. Now he's a happy-go-lucky Chucky. Another in for me was the references. During this part, when they're talking to him, he does reference that he wants to watch the 9 o'clock news, which was from the first one. Devin also mentions that you can't trust a Chucky doll. Sometimes you can cut them up into pieces, you can burn them, and it's still not enough. Another reference to what they did in the original Child's Play movie. There's a few different other little references here and there that happen in the show, which is always a good nod. That he continues to reference himself, but he also references other TV shows and movies, and sometimes that's the fun of watching these episodes that Don Mancini creates, is that experience in horror and his love of horror. He always brings a new experience to each episode from another movie, another director, something that kind of just shows a little homage, and he always does it in a nice, good, tasteful way, not like a rip-off kind of way. Another in for me I'm going to give to was the two kills in this episode. So we have the death of the father during the confessional, in the confession booth, which we saw that in the trailer, but it was still neat to see that they were willing to go to that effort to kill a father by choking him to death with, I think it's the rosary beads. I'm not positive on what they're called. I'm not big into religion myself, but he chokes him out there and he dies. And then we have the other death, which is of Trevor, which was a very nice, gruesome death, and that had the really good camera angles. They shot it very well to make it nice and bloody and gory. The things I'm mixed on in this episode is Trevor. His character comes in. He's supposed to be this asshole from the last school who Lexi got in trouble, and he got sent to this school. And now he tries to act like he's changing his life around. He's such a good guy in this school, but deep down he's still an asshole. And they start playing on that a little bit, and then he dies at the end of the episode. So, for me, I thought that was going to be going somewheres. Maybe it was going to be part of the story arc. I didn't know if maybe Chucky was going to convince him into going after the kids, if he was going to be part of the storyline or plot. But they just kill him off in a really cool way. And then the other thing I was mixed on in this episode, or maybe I'm out on it, is the pacing of the episode. We spend a lot of time in the torturing Chucky scene, and then I feel like the episode kind of plods around. This is not my favorite episode of the season so far. This might be actually my least favorite up to this point. It's very, very slow, methodical kind of episode with not a ton happening to progress the story on further. And then also in this episode, we ended off the last episode seeing the back of Glenn and Glenda with their legs. And in this episode, there's no Glenn and Glenda, there's no Tiffany, there's no Nika, there's no Andy. It's just focused on the three main characters with Lexi and Devin and Jake. But which is fine, but you left it off on a cliffhanger and then you didn't address it at all. I would have liked to have seen some progression in their story, or it might have broken up the feeling that this was just plodding along as it went through the episode. Overall, we get a happy Chucky in this one, so Brad Dourif gets to break out his voice chops some more and show us what he can do in his voice acting by being happy-go-lucky Chucky. And then we get a Chucky that is jacked up, Mr. Workout Chucky, which is how we get Trevor's kill. He punches right through him and is holding the heart. And he says he never missed Armistice Day. And then when he's talking, hey, it's going to be a fun type of voice, you know what I mean? So he's trying to play the meathead Chucky. So we obviously can have different versions of Chucky in this. And I'm not sure if they'll explain how he became Buff Chucky or why he's Buff Chucky. Did someone just create a buff doll and then he put his body into it? Did this doll somehow work out and then it magically grew bigger muscles? Is it something to do with Damballa? We don't know. We'll have to see. That's why I'm not giving any of this stuff an out, because it's unexplained. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that Don Mancini will explain it as the season goes on. Overall, this episode, it's okay. Like I said, it's my least favorite of the show so far this season. And it's probably, at this point, it'd probably be less than any episode in the last season. It's probably my least favorite episode so far. It has a lot of that quirky humor. Not as far gone as Seed was, but it still has that kind of humor in it that's kind of from Seed. Sometimes the humor lands, sometimes it doesn't. I didn't hate it as much. And I do like when Don Mancini throws in some random stuff. So this episode had a lot of that, just to warn you ahead of time. Overall, we'll see how this turns out. We'll see what the next episode brings. If you want, you can give me a like. You can subscribe. Leave some comments down below. Maybe you like some things about this episode, or maybe you saw something in the background I missed. Until the next one, guys, rest in peace.